Hey y'all, it is Nikki. Welcome back to the channel. I have absolutely no script whatsoever for this video. I'm just gonna wing it and see what happens. What am I up to this week? I've been working on my prequel project a bit this week, kind of on and off. Ran into some problems early on, which was a little bit frustrating, but also just like part of the process. Like you have your plan and it looks great on paper and you have all the bullet points and everything, but sometimes when you actually go to write it, that's when you run into all the things that are like, okay, I totally left this out, or like I completely forgot to account for this, and I should have even noticed this in my plan. I did a little bit, but I thought it would kind of just work out. But I realized fairly early on that I did not have enough action in the early stages, or that my like actual action got started just too late in the story. So I'm writing and writing and writing, and it's like, well, I'm enjoying these scenes, but as far as like engagement goes, I'm not sure that readers are really going to be like hooked and drawn in unless I have some more action early. So I had to sort of do a little bit of a revamp of the early part of my story to figure out how can I factor in like a little bit more action and also like introduce the stakes earlier. That was another thing I realized. Because this story is sort of a wizard goes to the small village to collect boy with powers. You know, that's never been done before. I was counting on a slower start because those stories tend to start slower and there tends to be more mystery as the wizard doles out information in bits and pieces. But I realized like as I was writing it that did not need to be the case. I didn't need to like keep so much secret from my main character. He could just know more off the top. Fortunately, I was only like 3 chapters in. So that's amazing because it allowed me to just stop, take stock, redo another pass of my outline without having to like do too much surgery on stuff I'd already written. I was able to make a couple of quick fixes to my most recent chapter, and then I'm just moving forward from there with the new ideas in mind, knowing that I'll need to fix stuff in the early chapters. I'm trying not to stress too much about perfectionism because I know even as I continue to move forward, I'm gonna run into other things that are problems. I'm gonna have to revisit the outline again and make more changes. And so part of me is like, oh, you should just wait and outline and outline and outline and then write. But this is a just for fun project. And I don't feel like just outlining and outlining and outlining. I want to try and write it. And so I'm trying to use this as practice for writing a rough draft and being okay with the roughness of it, not worrying about perfection. I'm really trying to work on that and train myself to do that without feeling like I failed by not writing a perfect first draft, because I know that's just not realistic. Anyone you talk to says that the first draft is for just getting the story down, figuring out what's wrong with it, and then writing a better one. I've never been able to like fully internalize that. Always in the back of my mind, there's that hope of like, but if you just plan enough, maybe you can do it perfectly the first time. And maybe some people do, but just that hasn't been my experience. No matter how much planning I do, there are always things that sort of change. The process is very organic. Partway through, you come up with a brilliant idea that changes the trajectory of everything and tosses your outline out the window. And that's just how it happens. So I'm trying to roll with that and practice that feeling of going on even when you know that there are things that you're going to have to go back and fix. So that's that project. What else am I up to? In one of my other projects, I had to come up with a sort of like euphemism for one of my characters to use. A friend of mine sent me a link to this like British dictionary of nautical terms, which turned out to be like super fascinating. I found something I can use as like an exclamation for this character, at least temporarily until I find something better. But I also just found it really enlightening as far as like sailing research goes, because all of the definitions were like super thorough and gave you a lot of information about the ship and how the ship works, and it wasn't just like one-line definitions. So I think I might actually use that as my jumping off point for my sailing research that I need to do for this project, for future projects. There's actually a few that require some sailing research now that I think about it, but it's hard to know where to start. Like you can't just Google like how to sail, you know, you kind of need more of a jumping off point. And since this is like an old dictionary, old terms, I figure that could be like a good sort of starting place where you can skim through and like, okay, this word means this, but what's that? And look it up and get more familiar with the layout of a ship, because it's hard to look up what things are called on a ship when you just have no idea like what even is on a ship. So I have a place to start, which is really great. I'm actually going out with my mom today. We're hopefully going to hit up some thrift stores, or at least one, and a bookstore. So I'm hoping to collect some books. I don't normally thrift books because I just am really particular about the condition that they're in, which I know is like a little bit over the top, but I don't know. I like collecting books to look at them. When I read a book, I don't mind reading it on like an ebook version or an audiobook, but when I want them on my shelf, I want them to like look great. So hopefully I'll be able to find good books that are in good condition and I'm actually really excited. And I'm just really thankful to be like feeling better after the past couple weeks. Seems like my cold is kind of on the way out, so I'm thanking God for that. That's a huge blessing. Thanks so much for watching this video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. And comment below with some of the techniques that you use when you're first starting to research something for a book. Like, how do you tackle a vast subject area that you need to research? Where do you start? And as always, do not forget to spend some time in the clouds today.